actually my elder brother. He's unlike me. He is a Thai British citizen with a doctorate in computer science. So this provides him with a very good foundation for his expertise in digital transformation. Peter is also very experienced in leading culturally, geographically diverse teams, having worked in a €9 million European Union funded research project, one of the largest private education institutions in Thailand, as well as a variety of other industries. He is also the co-founder and is the Executive Director of LiCAS News, the Roman Catholic mission of Bangkok's regional English news service. The news service promotes Catholic solutions to chronic social issues with a conscious effort to appeal to the youth interreligious readership. Peter is also the current Secretary General of SIGNIS, the World Catholic Association for Communication, the first Asian to be voted into the position by its worldwide members. He will be speaking to us today on the topic of communication and vocation, promoting vocation through solutions journalism. Elder brother, if you're ready.
Sawasdee krab. Wow. I'm really quite daunted, actually, by this crowd. But I'm really happy that you are here, especially those who have traveled across so many time zones. I think for some of you it might be midnight. So really, hats off to you for being here and for still being awake as well. So thank you. Thank you so much. I think the reason I feel daunted by this is, it's a topic of communication and vocation. I know something about the first half, but I think I'm probably the least informed about the second part, the vocation. Some people say the best way to get to know a culture or get to know something is to sit down and have a meal together. So I think you've had several meals in Thailand, and I hope that you have managed to make new connections, and I hope you've learned something about the culture here. So I don't have the ability to sit down and talk about vocation much until on this trip. So, I mean, as a communication person, we always ask, what to communicate and to whom. And so, for me, the main question is, what is vocation, right? And as with many people of my generation, we try to learn something with the help of a friend. Stay with me for this one. What is vocation according to our friend ChatGPT? Apparently, vocation refers to a person's calling or sense of purpose in life, particularly in relation to their occupation or career. And that's when I stopped reading, because I thought, I think I need to make it more specific. So maybe I asked it again, how to encourage vocation to priesthood? I realized that we really also should be covering the call of religious women, but I didn't want to crash the internet by asking them something that complicated. So it said to me, encouraging a vocation to the priesthood is a personal and spiritual journey for individuals, but there are some steps you can take to support and encourage someone who may be considering a calling to the priesthood. 1, open and supportive communication. 2, provide information and resources. 3, encourage prayers and spiritual guidance. 4, offer exposure to priestly life. 5, encourage service and leadership. 6, have patience and support. And I thought, oh, this is going better than I thought. So I asked it, what about specifically for Catholic priests? Encouraging a vocation to become a Catholic priest involves some additional steps that are specific to a Catholic church. Foster a strong Catholic faith. 2, introduce them to the priesthood. 3, connect with vocations director. 4, recommend seminary visit. 5, emphasize discernment and spiritual direction. Again, better than I thought it would do. Supportive parish community, provide that. And 7, pray for vocations. I'm starting to feel that ChatGPT has some Catholic blood in it. But on a serious note is that it seems that what to communicate and who to communicate to in a vocation, whether it is into the priesthood or whether into religious life. I think from speaking to some of you, and also from speaking to members of the religious community, in particular the Sisters of the Assumption, the Focolare, it seems to be a moving target. And the phrase that always comes up is, the Holy Spirit works in mysterious ways. And I think while ChatGPT did come up with some useful practical pointers, there is that part of humanity, there is that part of our religion that it doesn't capture. I think the mysterious ways is something that perhaps we can start to focus on, because from what I've heard, the calling, the vocation, the voice, it can come from immense joy. I think you've heard in other stories, it can come from extreme trial and difficulties. It can also come from quiet reflection, deep reflection. There's someone in this room who shared to a group of us that he was reading this book, and that very much inspired him to come to the priesthood. So, The Heart of the World, Le Cœur du Monde. One of the reviews, it's not my words, but it's a great Catholic theologian, speaks from the heart about the heart of Christ. So, on pursuit of what to communicate and who to communicate to, if I could borrow the words from His Eminence, Cardinal Marc Ouellet, this morning. So, between Mary and Jesus, there is an indestructible communion sealed by the Holy Spirit from the first moment of the Incarnation until the passion, death, and resurrection of Christ. Now, this is the next part is where it really caught my attention as a journalist. This mysterious family is not a myth and an unattainable ideal. It is a reality as concrete as any of the poor families on the planet. A family forced to give birth in precarious conditions and to emigrate to save the child from Herod's fury. So thank you very much, Your Eminence, for those words, inspiring words. Because at LiCAS News, where I'm the Executive Director, and also and our members in SIGNIS, we do try to tell the stories of those what we call living on the fringe. Those, the poor families who are giving birth in very difficult circumstances, be it in Myanmar, be it in the far-flung corners of the Philippines, and of course in many, many different difficult countries in the world. So these words resonated with me very much as someone who works in communication. And if I may, if we can combine for communication, to try to answer that question of what and who to communicate to. This is a very short sentence from Towards Full Presence, a pastoral reflection on engagement with social media that was just recently released by the Dicastery for Communication. As communication is increasingly influenced by artificial intelligence, there arises the need to rediscover the human encounter at its very core. Now, the Dicastery chose to have a hashtag campaign called Fully Present. And that, speaking to them, it values genuine human connection. So in what we do as communicators, I think we have a very clear message in that we don't just write, we need to form that genuine communication, genuine connection. But as a Catholic, I think we can translate that a bit more in terms of how to be in communion. I think I've heard this quite a lot with the Catholic discussion. I've not heard it so much outside of the Catholic context. But how to be in communion. I think a lot of press, they might be talking about the readers. I think we also need to consider how to be in communion with those that we are writing about, those who are
All right, so we appear to have our electrical systems back. Apparently, it wasn't a problem with the convention center, but it was an outage for most of the city of Chiang Mai. But we've recovered, and I think most of us are back. So, if Peter, if you could kindly resume, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. No need to shout. I did do a head count before you left, so, you know, you seem to be still in the same in number. His Eminences are still taking the refreshment. But the pause actually was very useful for me. A gentleman came over and asked me, was that genuinely ChatGPT's response? They really are. Actually, it was more extensive. And maybe I can post a response later onto the website. It's really, you know, each bullet point, it actually said more about what you could do about it. So, for example, offer exposure to priestly life, facilitate opportunities for the person to experience daily life of priests. This could include attending Mass together, visiting a seminary or monastery, or connecting them with priests who can share their experiences and insight. So as I was saying, the practical guidance are there, but as I said, there is something missing. There is the mystery of the Holy Spirit that doesn't seem to be able to be captured within ChatGPT, the mystery of the Holy Spirit. Now that he's not here yet, so I can say that the heart of the world, it was Cardinal Willey who shared this book, means a lot to him. So I would recommend that you have a look. Originally it's written in French, that's why it's called Le Cœur du Monde, but it's been translated into English. So, back to how to be in communion. Now, often in communication, if we're a publisher, we have limited ability to interact with the actual subjects once we've published the story. With our readers, there are channels, so social media channels, there are commentaries that we can react to. But I think if we go back to what the dicastery of communication is aiming for, is that how do you make that genuine human connection when we communicate, especially when we're talking about how can that genuine connection be used to support vocation. So at LiCAS News, what we try to do is to adopt and adapt an approach called solutions journalism. The reason I say we are adapting it is that as I said before, normally in journalism you try to be an order or a step at a distance away from your subject. But for our purpose, because we are a Catholic publisher, we are part of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Thailand, our mission very much is different from the secular publishers. So what do we try to do when we publish a story? The first one is we go into, in terms of telling the story of those living on the fringe, we try to tell the story of what's wrong. You know, try to really understand the challenges, try to really understand what His Eminence is saying, people who are giving birth in very difficult circumstances and trying to escape from Herod's fury. We try to describe that. Our editorial, we call this the darkness. And the next step is we try to then explain to our readers and do justice to those we're telling the story of, is that how does it affect your society as a whole, this problem that you're suffering, this problem that you're living through. Are we telling the story properly? We try to say it doesn't just affect this group, it affects the whole society. The third one then is what kind of solutions works, and also what doesn't work. So this part we call it the light. As if some of you, they may notice philosophically or scientifically, how bright something is often depends on how dark that source comes from. The moon can be as bright as the sun if your eyes are used to being in a very, very dark place. So that is the same situation that we try to tell when people are living on the fringe. For them, they may not be noticed by society. Their sufferings go unnoticed every day. Even worse, their sufferings are known, but people have a higher tolerance of what is acceptable. So we try to provide the light by providing the darkness in our articles, in our storytelling. And number 4, the last one, is that unlike a lot of secular press, it's easy to write a story just about problems. It's easy to get the clicks. You have a very sensational headline. People read it. Great. 100,000 people homeless in a city. And then they don't do anything about it. But for us, it's very important that we describe the solution and we describe that change is happening. So this is our attempt to be in communion with those that we tell the story. And I think the way we make it part of our mission is that in terms of telling the solution, of course there are lots of solutions, there are lots of problems, but we focus on spotlighting the problems and the solution that the church is tackling. Especially when we say the church, of course we mean the clerics, the religious, and also the lay people. The reason we do this is our official mission within the Thai Catholic Church is, we call it digital evangelization. When we write, we don't just write for a Catholic audience. We try to write in such a way that other religion will also appreciate or be interested in what is happening. In fact, half of our team, they're actually not Catholics. Our marketing director is a Buddhist. She's at the back there. So we have stories. If our Buddhist editorial team cannot understand it, we will rewrite it. So I think I've been speaking about our approach, but I would love to show you just a few of the stories. I've got 8 here, but I think I'll do about 3. So this first one, the one on the top left, is a great story at the beginning of the pandemic. It's a priest who takes his ministry to the poor in Manila. But of course, you can't go around to people's houses. So the way he can do it is to go on the back of a pickup truck. So, and we see that these are the people who normally in society no one makes special arrangements for. Yeah, I really love the story of ministry. All the URLs for this will be available on the website. So obviously I won't read all these words, but it's a very well written article about bringing the ministry to those on the fringe. The next one that I would like to share is a story that we actually discovered through Caritas. And Caritas, we found, is a great source of stories because they're so modest when they write about their mission. This one, we heard that Caritas was teaching women to grow crops so that they can earn some income. And I thought, there must be more to this. Why would Caritas need to help women get income? I mean, it sounds nice. But why are they putting resources, quite a lot of resources into it? So it turns out, sorry, that was another story. This story is even better. So this one is Caritas, but it's about farmers who pretty much have lost hope because they kept on growing crops and they all die because of either the weather but also the conditions of the soil. And in this story, it's the story of two nuns who comes to help the farmers choose a different variety of seeds, different crops in terms of the biodiversity. And I love this picture because they're sitting right there with the farmers. And the reason I really want to share this with you is that I think many people, whether they're Catholics or non-Catholics, they have a preconceived idea of what religious life is like. And I do hope that a story like this would resonate with them. They might say, "Oh, I didn't know nuns do this." Or even better, say, that's what's important to me too. I mean, this approach actually was inspired by the Holy Father's visit to Thailand. As I said before, my team is that we're not all Catholics, and I was in a rather strange situation where my team was asking me, why is there all this fuss about a priest visiting the country? Because there was so much security, and I had to explain, yes, he is head of a religion, but he's also a head of state. And so I prepared the ground. Just imagine if a president of the United States would come to Thailand. You really don't want anything to happen. And on the very first day, the Holy Father comes down the stairs, and the first thing he did was to give a hill tribe girl a hug. And then my team looked at me and said, "I thought you said he's going to be like a president." And then he goes on to talk about the rights of women, the need to take care of the environment. And then there was that moment in my team, one of the Buddhists, he said, "But that's what I care about too." Aha, yes. That was an aha moment. So that's when I really saw the potential of the kind of stories that when people read, it's the kind of problems they care about. They want to know about the solution. And then they discover that this is the kind of thing that the Catholic Church is doing. This one was last year. 2 years ago, but I'll bring it up because there was a terrible natural disaster on an Indonesian island. Because it takes almost 24 hours, 17 hours on this, but I think that's counted as being conservative. The island was forgotten. And of course, there were humanitarian needs, there were practical needs, but the main thing in the story was that they really felt that they are forgotten. The disaster happened days ago, and no one has come. So, Sister Laurentina, SDB, when she made her way to the island, she was literally the first responder. I mean, it's inspiring, but it's sad at the same time. And this is, I think for most people, especially non-Catholic, is as far as they imagine what nuns are doing, is what religious life is doing. This is outside, as far outside a convent as you can get. But I think these kind of stories, it's being in communion. And I will share one more story. I love this story, actually, another one. So this is a Filipino priest who, because of shortages, because of the lack of resources, he doubles up as a doctor. And then, after seeing his patients, he then comes back. So that's him there. Walks back to his church and then celebrate the Eucharist. So I think, as I said, the calling, in terms of the vocation, that can come from many, many different ways. And I hope that according to the list of ChatGPT, was that this helps to expose some people to what religious life can be about. As I said, there are so many different ways that the calling will come. And just one of the things that we've been doing as communicators is that even though we have really great editors, really great writers, sometimes we need to listen. As the Holy Father says, we need to be listening with the ear of the heart. But how do you do that as a communicator? For us, it's giving our platform, in this case, to youth. So here we ask them, what does it mean to be listened to? And in this article, we have 15-year-olds who tell us very, very frankly what it means, and we did not edit any of their words. So if you really want to read what 15-year-olds think, what does it mean for their parents to listen to them, what their teachers to listen to them, I would recommend, this is Philibert. She's in India, and she asked all her friends, and yeah, we didn't edit a single word. There is only 7 minutes left, and in the style of this presentation, where I get words and assistance from AI, I steal words from prefects. I just would like to share this one in what we do. I think there's no instructions. There's no instructions for how to comprehensively support and encourage vocation. But I love this reflection by Dr. Paolo Ruffini, the prefect for Dicastery of Communication. He shared this in Baltimore only 2 weeks ago. The algorithm does not consider fragility. Love, however, love that we are called to witness is born from fragility, born from being affected by another's pain, by their emotion. I think if we can make a genuine human connection, not only to recognize other people's fragility, but also share, like Kun Mary, thank you so much for sharing your fragility and your strength. I think that is how we can inspire. I think that's how vocation, that's how we can be the conduit and be the silence that will help others to hear the calling of the Holy Spirit. So thank you very much for your attention and your patience. So this is the website for the microsite for the conference. All the live streams are fixed on there, and I will be also posting the full response of ChatGPT. I would really appreciate if some of you have the time to read through those solutions article. We would love to hear from you as well. So thank you for your time, and have a wonderful, inspiring time in Chiang Mai. Thank you.
Wow. Peter